Cheers,
Cheers.
everyone.
Cheers. Wow. Well, Ellen, now I know why we put you on right before lunch. Those descriptions, thank God we didn't put you on early. I would have been salivating. Wonderful descriptions. We're actually finding ourselves ahead of schedule here, and so we've had some wonderful presentations today, and I think what we all enjoy is the discussion part. So also online, if you have any questions for any of the topics that were spoken of this morning, we've got some great time for questions for anybody.
My question's basically to Clark. First of all, I'd like to thank Clark for bringing up this discussion of Petite Sirah style. I think that's one of the reasons why we should all be in this room. I also kind of concur with you on the ideas behind oak, but I think kind of the bigger question, and we touched on this last year, is really while you were talking, I was tasting your base wine here, and I was thinking to myself, it reminds me of economics class where the professor always says, well, all things being equal, let's talk about this theory. And I think that one of the things, or don't you agree that one of the things we should talk about again is kind of that not all the base wines are this good. There's a lot of over extraction that happens that kind of dictates what style of oak you're going to put in there, and I'm still tasting anyways a lot of Petite Sirahs that are kind of over. They're made like a Bordeaux rather than Petite Sirah.
I think it's a really fascinating interchange to study as it's evolving here in the U.S. And the model is Europe, where there really is no way to separate the natural and climate, soil, and altitude and all that. You can't really pick that away from the human elements. A beautiful example of this is the Sierra foothills, where we have the people at 1,000 feet and the people at 3,000 feet. At 3,000 feet, you have much more UV, you have much thinner soils, you're going to make more tannic wines no matter what you do, you're going to make minerally wines, and gee, let's charge a bunch of money for them and make them work in Manhattan. Why do we do that? Well, one of the reasons is that we don't have any tourists up there. It's too far to go. Whereas at 1,000 feet, we have these richer soils, but we also have piles of tourists. So what we really want to do is make $25 wines that have probably a more feminine profile, a little more oak, and we're trying to just roll them out the front door. And so nature and the human cultural aspects get together and over time form a regional style. And I think studying the evolution of that is just a hoot for us to watch happen. It's not like it's one thing or the other. I make the analogy with music that we have. I think of the origin of the grapes, and I don't care how you make the wine, these regional characteristics are just going to come out. So like if you're in Howell Mountain, you're going to have pretty remorseless tannin no matter what you do. And you have to accept that and figure out a way to market that. I think that's what you're talking about. That wouldn't be a great marketing program in the Russian River, where we have fog and we tend to have less color and much more feminine wines no matter what we do. So that is an overarching reality, and then that through the decades of earnest work and sweat, winemakers' jobs are to marry that together with the market that will work for that place.
Thanks, Clark. We have another question?
I had a question that basically for Bob and Steve and Clark as well. In Oregon, we have a lot of heat, but in a year like this, we're going to be lucky to get Petite Sirah ripe. Last year, we picked in November at 21.4. tough wine to make. And we're behind that this year so far. It leads to my question of something I've been experimenting with, and I wonder if you have or anyone else in the room has. Viognier. I've been co-fermenting anywhere from 0.5% to 3% Viognier in with my Syrah and also blending Syrah with it. I wonder if you or anyone else in the room maybe have worked with some Viognier co-fermenting with the Petite Sirah and what you might think of that.
Well, I have two thoughts. One of them is that sugar doesn't have anything to do with ripeness, and maybe it's not as bad as it seems. I don't know. I would have had to see the fruit, and clearly, I mean, we had all kinds of problems with acidity ourselves down here last year. You can see it in this wine. I don't know if it's problem level, but it's sure a lot of acid for a California Petite. I really like using co-fermenters with Petite Sirah in general, and Viognier is a good choice. I wouldn't bother about the wine. I would use the skins. You know, either throw them in the freezer, or you know, if they don't come in at the right time, or go ahead and make like the world's worst white wine out of just the skins, ferment them so you've got the alcohol and they'll preserve themselves, and then toss that in the fermenter as a way to help pull out the color, and then you'll get a little bit of this aromatic element as well. And I think fermentation strategies are wonderful with Petite Sirah.
Yeah, so I've got a comment on that too. The other bag of tricks you have is you've got stems coming in from riper grapes. I'd throw those in, and I wouldn't be a wimp about it. I'm not talking 10 or 20%, you know. Throw in something to help reformat the tannins, because the astringency of the, if it's an underripe Petite Sirah, what Clark was saying is, you know, it maybe isn't the bricks, but if the skins themselves are underripe, you can reformat them. You can do extended, you can even take another fermenter after it's pressed, take those skins, throw it in. I mean, we've done a few things with this one little heavy patch of soil we have with Petite Sirah as we're approaching a rain or even after a rain, and having, you know, made some goodness out of it, something we could actually use to blend. I like the idea of a small, you know, that 1 or 2% of Viognier, and you know what Clark's saying, I think, is, you know, it's classic, you know, just we just do a destem crush when we were doing Syrah Cofer, and just freeze make popsicles out of the Viognier, and then, you know, pop the frozen guys, 5-gallon guys back in. It's the tannins from the Viognier skins. It's the skins. That's what you want, or some other varieties.
Great. You have another question?
Actually, I have an off-the-wall question for Mark Oldman. It's kind of a marketing question. In your travels to Europe, especially France, I'd be interested in what their perception, their thoughts are about this grape.
Good question. You know, I was just in Burgundy, and you know, at least in France, it's so, and most of you probably know this, it's so insular. I mean, I love Burgundy, but you know, it's almost as if it doesn't exist. I mean, I'll be honest. Even in the, it's, you know, they are more patriotic. The French are more patriotic about France than Californians are patriotic about California. So even in when I was in Paris, I was looking for, you know, more of that global diversity, and I just didn't see that much. So, and in terms of other, you know, other parts of Europe, I just don't, you know, I think there's a lot of regionalism. I think we Americans, on the other hand, are embracing, you go to restaurants. I was just on Long Island, which is doing really interesting things, and half their menu was Long Island, half their wine list, and then the other half was kind of all over the world, including plenty of California. So I always think there's that kind of home court regionalism, and it's probably at its extreme in a place like France.
Thanks, Mark. Do we have any other questions? Well, great. Well, want to just thank everybody for coming. I think it's been very informative, wonderful speakers. Mark, I want to thank you again for coming all the way out from New York to the West Coast. And we're going to, we've got a few minutes, we'll have lunch, and then we'll all be in the barrel room and get to sample all the wonderful Petite Sirahs that all the producers and growers brought today. So again, look forward to seeing you all next year at the 10th annual, and have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us online.